In the woods where the tall trees sway, Bigfoot stops, he's here to play. Grizzly Chris with a grin so wide, hiding behind the pine, he won't be denied. Hey Bigfoot, can we be friends? Bigfoot and Chris, friends for a day, playing hide and seek, running a wildly gay. In the rain we dance, oh what a spree, together forever, just wait and see. Searching high, searching low, what a sight, laughing and dancing in the moonlight, camping out under stars that shine. Chris shouts, Bigfoot, come on, it's your time. Let's find a way to make it last. Bigfoot and Chris, friends for a day.
Number 1, civil target is flash 4, Bravo, 65, 20 low. Otherwise.
Hello, YouTube, and hello, Jackie and Twisted. Curtis, how's everybody doing? Looks like the gang's all sliding in. And I just saw a little Twisted about another plane that is horrible. Prayers and love, strength, and healing to the families from yesterday, that's for sure. That's a horrible accident, and if there's another one tonight, prayers for them as well. So tonight, where was that plane at, Jack? Twisted? Anyway, unfortunately, the original guest, David Whitefang. Hello, dog. How you doing? David Whitefang has a severe migraine, which I suffer from at times, so I can totally understand why he's not here tonight. He will be rescheduling, and trust me, it's going to be a good one because oddly enough, we've been doing this almost the same amount of time, and we've been doing the exact same areas, and we've never bumped into each other. So it's going to be a really good show when he does come on. But somebody did manage to save my skin at the last minute, so I have a pretty special guest. He's backstage, and he's going to be popping on here any second. So I'm sure everybody will have some idea who he is. But Twisted in Philadelphia, first I'm a little twisted. So if everybody would put a warm hand together, because Mr. Grizzly is joining us tonight.
Hello there, everybody.
He
How's everybody
is
doing? Hello there, Sir
man,
Brian.
the man and I finally get to do another show together.
Yeah, isn't that wild? So yes, absolutely.
It seems crazy. Even our lives are both kind of gotten so busy, it's hard to even text each other anymore.
Oh, I
So
know.
to get
It's
to
crazy,
do a
isn't it?
show is fun.
So, hey, Jackie, how you doing? So, hello, dog. Everybody that's tuning in tonight. So, yeah, it's going to be a fantastic show. I don't know. What are we talking about tonight, Brian?
I don't know. I was sitting there trying to think of something, and I've been watching some of the newer Bigfoot reports, and at the same time, something clicked that caused me to do a whole lot of soul searching and reflection on um, doing this prep for the show. Not just this show, but bodybuilding show. I started training a little differently. And normally I was looking back at it, I was pretty robotic. I was form, you're locked in, you don't move this, you don't move that. And then I started watching and another channel. I won't go into, some people like him, some don't, but you can't discard his information. It's kind of one of those things. But it caused me to look at my training and go, you know what, let me try it and just see. And I did that. And now my training has actually gone up another level. And I'm only using half the weights I was using, but I get a better workout. And instead of being so robotic, I kind of let the body move the way kind of nature intended it to. And then it hit me. It's like, man, I have literally, it'll be August, will be 40 years in the gym for me. So
Wow.
38 years as a gym employee. And I've literally helped hundreds of people lose thousands of pounds of weight. But now I look back at it and I almost feel guilty because over the last 10 years, I've been kind of married to a style. And it's like, man, that really wasn't the most, I was ready to take a sword to the family jewels that I'm right. This is the only way to do it, the most efficient way to do it. Now I look back and I thought, man, I could have helped those people do so much more. I almost feel guilty. So, and that tied into kind of like there's a whole microcosmos going on inside the weightlifting world that's going on in Bigfoot world too. Everybody's worried about science at this moment. Science to prove this and science to prove that, where Bigfoot's a little different because in the bodybuilding world, it's like, okay, we're spending all this money on research for a bicep curl. Why does it work? And then it hits you. It's like, well, what difference does it? We know it works because there's the evidence. Look at Arnold. So why do we need to validate it through science? And then that kind of hit me with my Bigfoot work. It's like, why am I trying so hard to validate this in a scientific manner when I just want to share it with like minds? So it was kind of an epiphany of, man, I need to lighten up on doing all the little details and just enjoy the journey, and share that with like-minded. If somebody doesn't believe me, who cares? I don't really need to validate them or have science validate it. It's more about the journey and sharing what I have found and see if other people agree.
Well, you cannot take a non-believer and turn them into a believer, right? And I learned that years ago. You have so many hoaxers out there trying to disprove Bigfoot with their CGI, fake photographs or costumes, making fun of people. And then you have the people out there in the Bigfoot world that's trying to make the names for themselves, trying to fabricate evidence to make their names in these groups or on YouTube, try to get famous. That really hurts. And they discredit not only themselves, but other researchers, right? So when people see that, then once again, it's another hoax, and that hurts everybody. So you got to take that into account.
Yeah.
So when I talk to people about the phenomenon, it's you take it as what you want and as you will, and either you believe it or you don't. And you talk to these hunters or outdoor avid people. They go hiking, hunting, fishing, whatever you want to say. Bicyclists that they go through the woods, and they've done it for years. And all of a sudden, they have an encounter, and they're like, "I never would have fathomed out of my 50-something years, 60 years, 40 years, 30 years that such a creature could exist until I encountered it myself." And that's when things have changed, and we hear it all the time. So it's really, and we talk about this a lot on shows, but then also how you collect evidence, how you portray your evidence and display your evidence, right? It's always the totality of the circumstances.
Yeah.
Not every tree break is evidence of Bigfoot. It's the totality of everything. What makes you think that you have Bigfoot in the area? It's known for Bigfoot activity. It's because we've seen Bigfoot in the area. We have screams, we have howls, we have tree breaks, we collected footprints in the area, we have structures, and that's what people need to know about, right? Is once again the totality of everything as a whole. And that's what is more credible when you tell somebody, I investigate this area and here's why. So when I do find these tree breaks or tree structures, here's what leads me to believe it is Bigfoot, not just kids or adults making these things in this certain area. And that goes a long ways.
Yeah. And that's why I've been working a little harder on trying to make things more concise when I say, hey, I got this weird tree twist, and then it's like, well, this isn't going to get me anywhere. What else is around that?
Right.
It doesn't matter what's in the past. It's like, what is around that particular tree break that makes it maybe Bigfoot. And hoaxing, yeah, you're right. And I'm not going to get into who, but there was a couple people I really respected that all of a sudden I found out they pushed some bad footage as portraying it as something that wasn't. And it was like, I don't know about you. Now I have a hard time looking at anything that they put out. Once they get caught with their hand in the cookie jar, I don't know if it was clicks, views, or running out of content, why they did it, but it was like, man, it's pretty obvious once you look at it.
That is correct. And even as you are a good experiencer and investigator, when you interview people, you can tell when somebody's encounters are true or false or fabricated, because we have enough experience now to determine, oh, this person's not telling the truth, especially when you start asking specific questions. And once you lose your credibility, you're done. Nobody's going to take anything you say at face value anymore. You lost your credibility, and you're right. It happens.
Yeah, it makes me wonder, why would you take that chance? Especially if you're highly regarded in a community. It's like, I mean, are the views really that important to throw the whole baby out with the bathwater? Or I don't understand the reasoning.
Everybody wants to be a speaker at a conference. Everybody wants their Facebook groups to be the number one in views or members. Everybody wants their TikTok groups to grow and their YouTube channels to grow. but it's got to grow organically and naturally. And people are doing things the wrong way. And I'm not going to mention any names, and they know who they are, and they're watching the show, or they're going to watch the replay. But in the Bigfoot Outlaw family, we don't start drama, and we don't call anybody out. But as well, if they come on our show, we will question them if they're going to present evidence or tell their encounters, because we want to make sure that they're 100% truthful and everything. And we just don't want to have anybody on here just to fabricate stories, because everybody wants their 15 minutes of fame. Everybody wants to be on everybody's show. And if you ever notice, ladies and gentlemen, that people hop channels and interview on different shows, have you ever noticed how their stories change?
Yeah.
Think about that.
That's when, you follow somebody and all of a sudden details start
getting a little more richer, a little more gross in detail. So that's where we call fabrication. And they know who they are, but if people that watch other channels and other shows and follow these people, people ought to sit back and realize not every time you go out in the woods, you're going to have an encounter. That's not how it works. There's people out in the woods 30, 40 years and never had an encounter. Look at Ken Gayhard. He's never had an encounter. And look how famous he is, right? He's never even seen one. And there's other people like that as well. But then you have these other people that don't even have 2 years experience. And every time they go out in the woods, they have screams, footprints, tree breaks, some kind of picture. Shut the front door. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Little Twisted said everybody wants to be a rock star. Absolutely. I wish it was that easy.
Yeah, exactly. There's I consider myself blessed for what I've had, but at the same time, I start adding up hours and time in the woods, and somebody pinpointed, I would have never went to that spot.
Well, Brian, you gotta realize what state you live in, and how many areas have you gone to, and how many areas have you gone to before and not have any activity at all.
Yeah.
And you've been up there almost your whole life. So, and people just don't stop and think. The rationality of somebody going out, 3 times out of the month on the weekends and having encounters every weekend. Mathematically, that's impossible. It does not happen like that. If that was the case, the sightings across the United States would be through the roof. The sightings would be off the charts, ladies and gentlemen. It does not happen that way.
Yeah, I never did figure that out. It's like, I understand there's some places where people have to travel and plan and camp and, stuff like that. So they have to do it in a limited time frame. But for somebody who can drive a couple hours, it's like, why do you just take, like you said, 1 week a month or 3 days a month? I think you're going to have something really happen where I'm going to the same place 3 or 4 times a week, 9 months out of the year. So the odds of them being around are a little, because more than half the time I get skunked, but to me, it's like I'm still in the woods, but I'm in the woods different times each year or each month. So if they're roaming around, I think I have better odds of catching them roaming 3 times a week than one weekend a month.
Right. And there's people that go out there and camp in the woods, in different spots weeks at a time and come back with 0. Yeah. But then once again, you got somebody go out on a Saturday and come back with 20 pictures and all this evidence. And it's like, come on, really?
Yeah, it's so weird. Because and it just seems like the community can be so divided at times. Like little cliques, and it's like, aren't supposed to have why aren't they kind of accepted in Oregon? I think is Oregon one of the states that has the law? Or is that Washington?
No, Washington has a law. I want to say Rhode Island has one, and there's some other states that you cannot kill a Bigfoot because they are protected. Hey,
Yeah, I
sweetie
know.
pie. There's Mary.
Oh, hi, Mary.
So, but the thing though is, and I don't know if you were ever watching, we had one that had extraordinary claims on his encounters, and I called BS, and I offered him a polygraph test.
Oh, I didn't see the polygraph one.
He refused. Why would you refuse polygraph test? So yes, I will challenge people, and I will offer a polygraph test.
Yeah, if you're going to go out and publicly say this happened, and that's why I don't understand why people, if you're already respected and near the top of the field, I can understand some upstart one, like you said, 15 minutes of fame. But when you've been considered one of the greats of this era, I'll say that because there's some stuff going around now that limit telling what the greats are, but leaving out people like Ron Moorhead and Bob Gibson and stuff like that. I don't agree with that, but those people who are up there trying to pull the wool over your eyes for a YouTube channel. It's like
It's sad, it really
yes,
is.
you
It
just
really
lost your
is.
conferences, you lost everything. To me, it's
What really gets me is when a lot of people claim they have all these Dogman encounters.
mm,
But see, like Dirt Road down here, he said, "I'll take the test." I know he's telling the truth. I don't have to give him the test. He's already passed my test. So, but the thing though is that the people that fabricate these stories just to get on these shows or other people's shows, it's sad. People do have encounters. Don't get me wrong, and I'll tell you, I mean, when I first heard your story about feeding them the peanut butter jars and the amount of peanut butter, I mean, that was far fetched. However, you know, of all the certifications I had uh, with interviewing, when I interviewed you, you passed all my tests, and I knew it was genuine. Genuine. Hey, Jeff, welcome to the show. And I knew you was telling the truth, and I knew the encounters were real. And not only that, you had the physical evidence to show the empty peanut butter jars and everything else. I mean, and just like as I know, that some of these encounters that people tell us seem off the chart. They're so far fetched, but it actually does happen.
yeah, it's something I hear around here now. Now I have fun because like I pulled in behind a white truck at Menards to do a pickup, and it had just a little small bumper sticker with Bigfoot that said, "I believe." He happened to get out the same time I did, and so I ran up to him. I said, "Hey, hey, hey, hey." He kind of looked at me like I was, ready to rob him or something. And I said, "You actually believe?" And he looked at me and he paused and he goes, "Well, do you?" I said, "Oh yeah, I've had a few run-ins." And he says, "I can't honestly say that I've seen one." He said, "But and this was your run-of-the-mill fisherman story. He was out in a boat, him and a buddy, and they were up in Canada, and they heard a fish jump. Kept on fishing, didn't think nothing of it. They hear another fish jump, but it's a little closer to the boat, and they're like, 'Holy cow, they're not biting, but they sure are jumping.' And then, boom, in the boat there's a rock, and then
Yeah,
something screamed from the shore, and they couldn't see it, but they had never heard anything like it. And he said, and they made that boat hydroplane the whole way to get out
right,
of there. So
right.
he goes, my wife thinks I'm nuts, but I'm telling you, they're out there. Oh yeah, I believe you.
Mary and I have this discussion all the time. She's never had the experience to have seen one, hear one, see any physical evidence of one in the woods or anything like that. And I asked her the other night, I said, have you ever been around a lion in person in here at Roar? And she said, yes, I have. I said, magnify that by 100. And her eyes just got like saucers. And I was like, Mary, that's how loud they are. I said, you will never forget what it sounds like. I said, it's crazy to hear something like that in person. And
Yeah,
she's like, wow.
When we were in Honduras, we did it was called a Birds, Flowers, and Monkey Tour. And luckily our guides let us skip the flowers. We paid them a little extra. So we did just sat with the monkeys. Well, they had one monkey that was biting everybody. So they put a lead up in a tree. It was a howler monkey. And that thing went off at the bottom of the tree. And I think they're at 120 decibels. So they're just above a jet plane. And what roared at us that night was at least 5 times louder than that. Because, I mean, the howler monkey was loud, but the Bigfoot roar it vibrates your clothes.
Oh, it's just insane. Yeah, it's just insane. So,
yeah, you can't put it into words, so it's hard for people to.
And there's my mother.
That's your mom?
Yeah, that's my mother.
Grizzly mom.
So, but and hearing that at Salt Fort, laying in the tent when that one roared, my first time up there, it was just off the chart because it echoed throughout the valley. And Curtis and I was like, did you hear that? And it was like, yeah, I heard that too. And it was just like that was, and Shelby slept with Old Bear and his wife in the camper because she wouldn't sleep in the tent. She's like, oh, hell no, Dad, I'm not sleeping in the tent. She's like, screw that.
So, what was your very first Bigfoot encounter? I honestly don't know the answer to this one. Was it while you were on duty or was it after?
Mine, I would say it was turkey hunting in Trimble County. I didn't know. I thought it was a hunter. And it was probably in my late 20s. And I was trying to go after this big Jake. It was probably over 100 yards away. And I was crawling on my belly. And I couldn't get close enough to it. So I got probably about 80 yards from it. And I had a 3.5-inch mag. And I was like, you know what? I want to pepper this turkey. So I set up and I went kaboom. And the only thing I saw was feathers. And about that time, something walked up the hill, and I thought it was a guy in a ghillie suit. And it made a bunch of racket, tearing down branches and stuff. Well, I went back to old man Jim's place. I was like, man, there's a hunter back there. He was like, there ain't no hunters back there. And I'm like, yeah, there was. He's wearing a ghillie suit. I said, but at the time, I didn't process it because it was too big. It more looked like the swamp thing. Does that make sense? They had leaves on it.
Yeah.
And it didn't look normal. But he was like, that was not a hunter. And he just smiled at me. And I was like, yeah, I'm telling you, it was a hunter back there. Because I scared the hell out of him. And he's like, and he just smiled. And then it was a little bit after that, the Trimble County guy, I can't remember his name. He's got a Bigfoot organization out there. And that's where they have all the sightings out there in his area in Trimble County. And I was like, shut the front door. And that makes sense. So, and when you hear people say it looks like the swamp thing covered in moss, it sure did.
Never knew that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's why I thought it was the guy in the ghillie suit, but it was too wide and too tall. Because I really thought it was a person at first, but looking back on it, it couldn't have been. It was too big, way too big. And plus, it wouldn't have made all that racket going up the hill, tearing down branches and stuff.
Yeah, so, trying to prove a point.
Right. Because when I shot at that Jake, it scared the hell out of me because I was like, man, nobody was supposed to be back here, right? So, but yeah. And don't forget the trail cam fixers too. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and that one you took is what you thought was street turkeys, and then when you sized them up along the road and they were gone, and then sized them up was
Then the grass was up to my chest. Yeah,
yeah,
that was crazy. Because Val's the one that made me go back and measure. So yeah, it's just, and that's what I'm saying. And we talked about this on the other show. Is where do they go?
yeah.
Where do they live? Because they have to go somewhere. Because we don't see them all the time, and that's why I think they can go in and out of dimension somehow.
There's got to be something to it because I was hem hawing on that before, but then the first time I'm following tracks for it was less than maybe an eighth of a mile. It wasn't that far. And then it's just an open field, and that last track is there. It's like
And it stops.
it couldn't have jumped into a tree. There's no trees.
No
It's like
trees, no rocks. And we know we got that guy from Canada we interviewed last year that witnessed Bigfoot that took down that moose. And he said it lifted that veil and dragged the moose under in it like it dropped the curtain and just disappeared. And we're hearing all those encounters too. So it's got to do something to mess with the dimension somehow.
I know, and that's where people get hung up on. And even I did for a while, but since watching your show and doing them and listening to more shows, it's like, there's just some things science isn't going to cover at this point.
Ron Moorhead broke it back 4 or 5 years ago with quantum mechanics, right? And we know they're flesh and blood. We know that because they can get shot and they can die because people shot him and killed him. We know that we won't say his name, but other people on some Bigfoot shows as well that shot him and injured them and got blood, right? So we know they can be injured or killed. And but somehow, just like Susan says, they can totally go in and out of our physical world, at the very least become invisible. So it's stuff that we just don't understand. And just like Dogman, some people say they're translucent. We know they're flesh and blood too. But you talk to Daryl Denton and stuff, and they said that they pray and they vanish. They just vaporize. So explain that, right?
Yeah. I always wonder when you hear about the difference in the glowing eyes, if maybe that tells the difference, because I know there's theories about there about being demonic. And then you hear the dog, mainly, I'm not saying every time. The only ones I've heard of are when you talk about Dogman are amber or red. And it seems like the one with the red is when they pray and then it goes away. So it makes me wonder if the amber are more demonic or the red are more demonic and the amber may be more of a spiritual flesh and blood type. Because of the lore with the Native Americans.
Well, that's where I want Mary, when we go to Salt Fork in April, is to try to figure out with her abilities to see if she can see stuff or pick up on something that a lot of people cannot. Because I think Roger, what's the name of his show? Squatch Holler.
Oh.
Was wanting, because he was asking Mary questions the other night, Wednesday night. Because, there's so many questions, because nobody knows what Bigfoot really is, right? No. We don't know. We're still trying to figure it out. But it's just interesting because we hear everybody's encounters, everybody's stories, and then, Mike Scott has got a picture of Bigfoot. We don't know if it's holding an orb or if it's energy manifesting around Bigfoot. So like an aura. And hopefully next Wednesday we can display that, because Mike wasn't feeling good on Wednesday's show. So that's interesting. I mean, we got reports from Minnesota, Missouri, that people are in their deer stands, they see an orb and they hear crunch, 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 crunch. And all of a sudden, Bigfoot comes out of the orb, or Bigfoot turns into an orb. And before, we would discount that and think people were crazy, didn't we? Years ago. We didn't think that was possible. Now it is possible. So, that's why we don't discount anything anymore. We listen. But how can all these people in all these different states be wrong? Because everybody's encountering the same thing. And they're all consistent.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because people that don't know each other, and half of the, I don't want to sound so loud, but people that don't have the ability to even have cable where they live are describing the same things that other people are talking about when they're kind of isolated in their own little hometown. So it's
That is correct. And we talked about on a Wednesday show, I don't know if you watched it, that I was flabbergasted about Alaska, about the Bigfoot attacks, how prevalent it is up there, and everybody knows about it, and how often it actually happens. And the media don't cover it or publicize it. Yeah, because Small Town Monsters went up there and they did an episode on it. I don't know if it was called Alaska Triangle or something that Small Town Monsters did. Sorry, Small Town Monsters, everybody. I don't remember the name of the title, but they interviewed people in local towns, and they're like, "Yeah, I lost my son, my cousins, my uncles," and I was like, "Shut the front door." And they're like, "There was blood around the tent. My cousin was gone, and there was Bigfoot tracks." And law enforcement and the game wardens, they wouldn't disclose it, and the media said it was an animal attack.
The bears did it.
Yeah, and everybody up in the towns know, and they're like, "Yeah, we don't go out there at night." And they were talking about how many tents they found up there in Alaska at certain parts, that the tents are shredded, and they're not bears, because they have Bigfoot tracks, 18, 20-inch tracks all the way around the tent. They're not bear prints, they're Sasquatch tracks. So, and I was floored, and I was glad Small Town Monsters did that. I didn't know about that. Did you?
No, I didn't know about that. The only one I ever really heard of was Port Lock or Port Chatham. Aren't they both? I think they're
Yeah.
both the same name. But
And another thing they have up there, it's real prevalent, is small people. They're like,
no, I didn't know that.
yes, and they hang out in trees, and they're mischievous creatures, and they're about 3 to 5 foot tall, and they cause problems and all kinds of stuff. I mean, it's just crazy. And I was like, I didn't know about that either.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder who silences them. Is it our beloved, what, or is it a certain organization that wants to keep it under wraps too because they don't want the fact that some Bigfoot are bad getting out?
Well, the townspeople said that the Bigfoot up there we know they're much bigger. They said they're very aggressive and they're very territorial, which it makes sense. They said in certain parts of Alaska, and they showed the towns that they don't go out in the woods at night because they're that aggressive. And I forgot how many family members that actually were on the show that talked about their cousins, and this goes all the way back in the 70s. And I was just floored. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. So
Alaska always seems like they would be a little more grumpy. I'm trying not to be mean about it. It seems like there would be more buttholes up there because you got grizzly bears you got to deal with. And,
you made Mary laugh. You called it
so well, I can't say the other one. So unless I'm riding into town on a donkey, but they, you got grizzly bears you're dealing with, the weather, the all the animals up there are more, the food chain would be more competitive. So it seems like they would have to be more aggressive. And I don't know if I'm right on that. It's just an opinion, but
Well,
it had,
stop and think. You have somebody that we won't mention their names, but destroyed all their trail cameras up there. Remember that?
yep. Yeah, 50 plus were turned upside down and moved, and over 100 were smashed.
Yes.
One way in, one way out.
So what does that tell you? So, I mean, it's just crazy. And, I showed Mary one of my Bigfoot guns, and she was like, holy cow, what is that? I was like, that's my monster gun. I was like, it'll take down a grizzly bear.
Big one of those from Van Helsing that come out and keep going from the
Yeah.
trench.
And it's like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I would never attempt for any reason, but it's just a case of a grizzly does come out of the bush. But it's just, I don't know, because ladies and gentlemen, there are things out in these woods that should not exist, do exist. Not only Sasquatch, but other creatures that we don't even know that exist in our plane, in our reality. And it's just insane. So Mary's going to be introduced to that several times this year because she's going camping and some Bigfoot expeditions, and she's real excited.
Well, I hope
I
you
was
guys
trying to talk her into taking her kids down to LBL. Look at Ryan's face. He's like, what? Then I showed her the LBL on TV, and she's like, what are you going to do? Use my kids for bait?
Oh, I mean,
So
depends how they behave that day.
hell, I told her, I said, I won't even camp down there by myself. Are you crazy?
No, it doesn't sound like it. I want to go down there so bad, but
Hey, I'm brave, but I'm not crazy.
yeah, there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care if me and 2 or 3 other people, I still want to go camping. We got to have a group of people. So
Yeah, I hope you guys come up here or around here. Seems like there's been a pickup in Benzie and Manistee County lately. A lot of people
really,
hearing more stuff, and winter's a little harsher, so people are seeing deer tracks and feeding them, and all of a sudden the deer quit coming around.
wow.
So that's like when David does come on, you'll be able to sit back and listen and go, holy crap, he wasn't kidding about, because he's only a few years younger than I am, and I'll let him tell his whole story, but I can't believe we haven't run into each other. I mean, we're literally living in the same town, doing the same thing in the same counties, roughly, and he's sitting there. I just happened to catch him on a show. I'm like, he lives where? He's doing what? In my yard? And validating everything I had said, and people would tell him, hey, this Brian guy, he's also saying the same things where you're at. So, but I could see why he wouldn't have seen me, because it came out that I'm 6 foot tall and he's 6'7". So he would have just looked right over my head. But we're gonna hook up and have a little fun when he's feeling better. But in a way, it's kind of nice because there's somebody in the same place validating what I've been saying the whole time, So, and I know a lot of people would love to have that. A lot of people that come on, and like you said, some of the stuff I've had, it just seems so far out there. If you had asked me 6 years ago, if I was ever going to be able to see another one, I went, no chance. Won't. Let alone see one on a thermal, snatch a raccoon and smack it on a tree. I would have never been able to come up with that one. That was not on my, Powerball playlist.
Right. Then you hear stories of people that trade with them, gift them, and they gift back and leave petroglyphs, and it's just the interaction. And look at your friend, grew up and played with them, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. The encounters happen. It really does. And yeah, I agree with David. I'll take seeing Bigfoot over Dogman any day. I've never seen a Dogman. I don't know. The picture I got off the trail cam was a Dogman. Everybody suspects it probably was. But I don't want to see one. I probably have nightmares just even trying to cope with seeing something like that. But I don't know. But, it's just, what are they here for, right? Why are they here? And I had a rough time dealing with that 4 years ago. What are their purpose? You ever thought about that?
I never thought that question in particular to Dogman, and I guess I never thought it in particular to Bigfoot, because I just assumed they were, at the time I just thought they were the whole Gigantopithecus thing. But now when you talk to people, it's like, they're more than just an evolved orangutan. As far as a purpose goes, no, I never, especially Dogman. I mean, there's no evolution reason for it to be here. Where did it come from?
No, I don't know. I had a rough time with that. So I just don't know. And then you look at the DNA test that Melvin done, right? And how it come back. You remember that DNA test that shook the world? It's still on our website.
For Dogman?
For Bigfoot.
Oh, Bigfoot, yeah. Yeah, I don't want to say we're good friends, but I've chatted with her a few times about it, and
not a father human.
Yeah.
So, and then we go back, is that possibly what? The fallen angel, Nephilim, because they made it with animals and creatures and everything else. Is that why we have all these mythical creatures? And I'm not saying it is or it's not, but it's just it fits the DNA structure, right? Or it possibly could. So even David Pilatus, he wouldn't come out and say it, but it does fits the structure.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I misunderstood what Nephilim was, and I wonder if a lot of people do. Because I was under the impression they couldn't have kids, but then Justin corrected me on that. And then when I looked it up, it's like, oh, okay. So they can have kids, they're just not considered Nephilim, but they're the kids of the Nephilim.
Yeah, the fallen angels took with women on the earth, and they produce offspring. And they also made it with animals and other things. And I think it's in Genesis, isn't it, Mary? And she said in the book of Enoch's a bunch too. So, but and that's what I'm saying is that, because Mary and I talked about that the other night. I even talked to her. Is that Nephilim? Is that and nobody knows, right? The government knows because they recover bodies. They had them on slabs. We know that by retired military. And that's why they hang around the military bases. I think they're a little twist that says 100%. So there's Tank. Tank says, this may sound kind of funny. Have you ever thought there may be elementals? No, elementals is another thing that's out there in the forest and the woods. That's something totally separate. So, and there are elementals out there. A lot of psychics can see elementals. A lot of elementals can be shown. Now, we have a lot of people that has been on the Bigfoot Outlaw channel that has fairies. And that is crazy if you've never seen a fairy. We've seen fairies on the show. And I wish I know what show it was. We can go back and replay it. But yes. And Robert says focus on the portals. Ladies and gentlemen, portals are real. I've actually seen a portal on a flare, and I know somebody that's actually went halfway into a portal, and they end up getting cancer and dying, I think, 90 days later. So Nephilim, little twist set, are kids of the fallen angels and humans. Yes, that is correct. So, but it's a rabbit hole that we're never gonna know the answer. It's like the Tootsie Roll sucker. How many licks does it take to get to the center of the Tootsie Roll? I've tried that. I don't know how many times. Mary and I tried it, and I keep biting into it. So,
like that owl. Remember that commercial?
1, 2, 3.
Correct.
So yes. So Robert says the portal I went into did not give me cancer, but the time lapse is there. So yeah, I like said 3. Yeah. Robert, he said he found 2 portals. Was it code and tingling? I was just asking because I hear different stories. So
do you think what was that pilot's name in the Bermuda Triangle? Remember the guy that went into, didn't know if it was a vortex or whatever, and there was a huge time lapse, and
right, and he ran, almost used up, I forgot how much fuel and everything. And there was another one that went from Miami to Bermuda, and he lost all those hours too. And he didn't fly X amount of miles, but he used up all that fuel too. So it's just crazy, right?
Yeah, I mean, stuff out there that science is not going to get a grasp on.
No, there's so much that we do not understand as humans, as the ancient people has known. I think we lost a lot of ancient technology. I think we lost a lot of ancient wisdom. How did these ancient people without telescopes know the planets, the solar system, the stars? Right? It's just fascinating. And
or get the calendar right within a quarter of a day.
Right.
We had that beer in there once in a while.
No, absolutely. It's just fascinating.
I always just thought that the smarter we got with technology, the dumber we got with our in touch with the world. Now we rely on everything.
Robert says the longer you stay in the porter, the more you become part of their time. Well, see, I wonder about time travel too.
Yeah, Stephen Hawking thought it was possible to go back but not go forward, right?
Yeah, didn't Einstein think about time travel too? Didn't he have a theory on that? Correct me, ladies and gentlemen, if I'm wrong. So, because I thought the Nazis were working on that too. So,
yeah, wasn't the bell supposed to be time travel, or was that just more of a teleport?
The Glock, or something. Robert says that's why Bigfoot come here. They can only stay so long. There's a whole lot that we do not understand. I mean, these movies that we watch is part. Einstein said it was possible. I thought it was. Because these movies we watch are telling us bits and part of some part of the truth that's out there that science knows it's possible. So,
yeah, I always wondered about that because, when you get to, you had the Millennium Falcon at light speed and you had Star Trek with warp speed, and yet somehow now, as this stuff is coming about, are they naming it after the TV show, or did the TV show already have a glimpse that knew that Hollywood had an inside to what was being developed, so they just went ahead and called it warp drive?
Well, Mary said that some of the horror movies or spiritual movies that people that see demons, or what'd you call it, Mary?
Well, what I was saying was that there's people that get their third eye or their spiritual eye opened up and see the spiritual realm.
Yeah, people that get their third eye open up and seeing the spiritual realm portrayed in the movies because she's seen that in
things that are very, very similar.
and things are so similar that there's only way that they know what it looks like and how they portray it in a movie is so accurate. So that makes sense.
Oh, got you.
Because if somebody never saw it, they couldn't portray it like the creatures or the images or the spirits or the demons. So, yeah. So, I mean, that makes sense, right?
Yeah. I mean, those designs got to come from somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Robert said he had a black smoke Dogman following around him for 3 days. I said that would freak me out.
Yeah, I can't do the whole Dogman thing. That you never. I don't know. I think I know one person that had a good encounter. You know, everybody else, it's never a good thing.
Yeah. Hey, it's been a
I mean,
good show.
Madison National Forest, that part of the area is still closed down due to aggressive animal activity.
Well, Brian, it was a good show, sir. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, I appreciate you coming on and making me have a lot. Otherwise, I'd have had a lot of dead air because I was counting on Dave. So I had fun tonight. It was a good time.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. So yes, now Robert. You need to get with Robert. He's got a picture of him. Maybe he'll come on as a guest.
Oh,
Hey, Standing Stones, I miss you, brother. Well, ladies and gentlemen, like we always say, from coast to coast, around the world. Godspeed, everybody. Have a good night. Take care.
good night, all.